Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. We come to you live every weeknight for the last 1,200 and so weeknights, and we talk about guns. And we usually go for an hour or so. The show is 1,200 episodes long now, so the format has changed quite a few times over those 1,200 episodes. We started in March of 2016, so in March it'll be like 4 years worth of daily shows. Of course, there's a show or two missing in there. Whenever we missed like all of September one time, I think, and I forget what year that was and what for. And then we usually change the numbers up a little bit to reflect that. So there might be a couple of shows missing out of 1,200, but not many. So right now the format is an open conversation about guns as an alternative to the drift, as an alternative to the unconscious reaction to whatever the big digit medias are giving us as the news of the day, and the reactive, reflexive conversations that appear because of whatever's happening on the mainline news. Nothing ever, what gets done? When do we talk about what we want to talk about, right? When does the community get together and talk about our issues? Well, this is an opportunity, at least for some of that. Obviously, the whole community isn't going to come together every night because they're lazy. But those of us who do are welcome to join. Unlike the cowards in most of your typical conversations, especially about guns, we don't give the access to an elite few. Instead, we have access to everybody. Unlike communists, we're just like a bunch of regular people working together. So if you want to be part of the conversation, we throw a link out there, encourage you and challenge you to try to become part of the conversation. And we'll talk about guns. I'm not here to, help everybody who's never talked online before, but you're certainly welcome. But if you've got something, a point of view or a position or a question or a challenge to the positions or something like that, then let's talk about it. If you want to talk about what kind of caliber to buy or what model of whatever to add to a lame collection, then talk to somebody else. I'm not interested in that stuff so much. But if you want to talk about interesting stuff, then we're here. So we started a little bit late tonight because of the weirdness going on today, but we're here in spite of it all. I don't think I'm being corked because I think they finally gave up and left the evening slots to the show. 1,200 episodes. We finally have claimed every single weeknight slot. It's not that much to ask. It's just 5 slots a night or 5 slots a week. So I'm drinking some coffee here. I just woke up. For me, this is definitely morning. Today was a weird day, so I ended up getting to sleep late. But I think I still got 6 hours in today, so I should be good to go. I'll drink some of this coffee, and we'll see how the show goes. Usually I wait about, 20 minutes, and if nobody shows up to chat, then we end it. We're not trying to push nothing here. No agenda other than to have an actual conversation. So got the link out there. Got DJ out there. Weston showed up. Says there's 3 people out there. That's probably the 3 of us. We'll see. Sometimes that counter is weird, and sometimes it's accurate. But we don't bring a script to this show. We don't bring an agenda, and I really don't care about changing your mind. You can change my mind. You can change everybody's mind by bringing something interesting to the conversation or maybe a new perspective on something. If you want to regurgitate, there's plenty of shows that have to just repeat everything 3 times. So you can go there and just repeat things 3 times and feel like you've said it a bunch of times. Here, though, we're trying to evolve the conversation, give the growth an avenue for expansion. So take that challenge, be part of the show. I'm going to just go look at Instagram, I guess. Nobody's showing up tonight. There's Ozzy out there. Or at least nobody's showing up to talk. So, yeah, this is the worst part of it. I guess I could go look and see if I got a video out there. I probably do. because every morning we try to look at the calendar. One of our projects is the calendar. I guess there isn't anything today. What is today? 24th? You look at the calendar itself. I guess there's nothing on the calendar for today. So sometimes I start the show out by looking at our gun calendar just to give people a second to show up and to decide, you know what, I do have the balls to click on that link tonight and be part of a conversation about guns. We do have one. I don't know why that didn't show up in my feed. What's going on with that? Is it just not showing up? No. Why is it not feeding? So now I got to go to here and go to Studio. And then we'll flip into the videos. And then we'll go to this one, which was scheduled for the 24th. Scheduled for 10/24 at 4:15 a.m. Isn't that today? No, today's the 23rd, so if I'm not an idiot, I would have set this one up for today. Set up for the wrong day. Oh, I guess it is tomorrow. I'm looking at the calendar wrong. So there you go. I'm an idiot. So yeah, I'm looking at the calendar, which is already flipped because it's obviously in New York or someplace stupid. So it has already flipped on me. So there's nothing today, but tomorrow there'll be one. Because we'll look at that video. I guess I don't need this. Do I should print this more? I guess I can do that later. And open up. How am I going to print this? Or am I showing this? I guess I got to go to here. And then here. Oops. And then here. And then this is it. Good morning. We're taking a look at guncalendars.com, where we attempt to archive our daily firearms history. As you can see, though, the calendar isn't completely full. And if you know something that we're missing, or if you have an event that's not already featured, please let us know. We'd like to have something listed for every single day. Today's the day we've been talking about for quite a while, and if you see this before, check out the rally. I guess we'll be seeing this on Friday, because I'm not sure how but yeah, today's the day for the 2A rally. It's October 24th. Last year it was live in DC. It was on November 2nd. This year it's on October 24th, and it's live virtually, so everyone can participate. So if you've already been participating, this is redundant. If you know of it, go check it out. So that's an opportunity for people to get together, get on track. It's a situation report from a bunch of different organizations and activists and interested people in the community. And not so much preach to the choir, but get on tune so that we all can understand where each other are coming from and have more effective communication and some evolution of the conversation. At least that's what I think. It's also the day that Joe White died. This was a guy who had been supporting an organization called Canine Veterans Day. The idea is to have March 13th be Canine Veterans Day. The canine war dogs don't get their own day for whatever reason. This is an opportunity to create awareness and petition for that. It was created in 1987. Is a retired military dog handler. And thought this would be a good idea. I don't have all the information about it here, but there's quite a few states that have adopted March 13th as Canine Veterans Day, and we'll talk about it, of course, on March 13th as well. But this is unfortunately the day that Joe White, the guy who created the concept, passed away. That was in October in 2009. But I think it was in 2009. Way of obviously was pretty sloppy. But the goal here is to make awareness of work that he did. So imagine it's a day to give a dog a belly rub, dang sure, but to think about those military dogs that do all kinds of jobs that people can't or won't do, right? So this is the kind of stuff we try to keep track of on the guncalendars.com project. If you know something that we're missing, like you say, please let us know. We also use this to spark conversations that happen later in the day. So midnights, each night at midnight Eastern, we have more discussion on these topics. We'll see you then. Alrighty, well, so there was tomorrow's video today. You're getting a little free early access. Now we'll go over to the Instagrams and see what's going on with this rally. That's so good. I don't understand this one at all. I don't understand. I'm just going to go to the rally. Right. All right, so yeah, tomorrow is the rally, and it'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So whatever time that is for your real time zone, that doesn't need to always have everything catered to their time zone. You got some posts going up. All right, so again, this isn't really a presentation. It's supposed to be a conversation. So see if anybody shows up today. It's my morning, so I can, do other things, I guess. But we can have a long conversation tonight. We'll see who shows up. We got Rebecca posting a picture from last year. This was, I would say this was probably before the rally started because nobody's really doing anything and nobody would have stuck around like this after everybody booked out of there right after. So I'd say this is probably right before it started or at some point before. There's DJ jumping in. Thanks for jumping in.
Howdy.
Let's see. She's saying back in DC today, been a long year. You get to join us from your own front lawn. Let's see. Then we got Amaland has posted a story about the rally. So Pink has posted a story on Amaland, and grab that link. Okay, and then we've got. I guess we'll look at that link. So here's the story on Amaland. Amaland is this website. I guess they sell ammunition, but now it's more like a news website.
Yeah, if you do a second search for Second Amendment daily news, they pop up. They don't always have something daily, but it's got some good stuff once in a while.
It's mostly news, though. It's not like an ammunition sales website or anything.
That is correct.
Yeah. So I think when it started, it was ammunition sales. That's why I always think of it like that. Actually, let's go look.
Well, if they got to park that address, they should be using it that way.
So you can go way back and look and see what our websites used to be because the entire internet is always there. Even though a lot of streams want us to participate as if it's a temporary stream of information, it's actually accumulating. And there are people that go out and look at the internet all the time. And if you go to the Wayback Machine, we're now looking back at 2008 at whatever it was going on at amaland.com, and that's going to take a minute, it looks like. So now we'll jump to 2010. I don't remember when I first started hearing about it. I thought it was like 2015 that I started hearing about it.
I just found them in the last couple of years.
It's interesting. So this is them talking about Downrange Television offers gun blogger weekend video highlights. Interesting. Because back in 2008, there was no YouTube yet. We were all just fighting for who's going to be a website, who's going to be a real website or whatever. And looks like they were already a news site in 2008. So there's that in 2010. Yeah, shooting sports news. They were already news, so they've never been an ammo site maybe. Anyway, so then this is Pincus's article is posted up there this Saturday from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern. So now it's 3 hours. 30 speakers sharing their personal perspective on celebrating and defending the rights protected by our Second Amendment virtually, or at a virtual event. This will blend recorded speeches with live hosts and interaction with viewers in the comments sections on YouTube and Facebook. So I guess it's on those two platforms. Other platforms probably had the opportunity. I don't think there is anyone from StreamYard anymore. I haven't heard from any individual at StreamYard. I think they just got bought out, and it's just a division of whatever company bought them. So there's no one there to take initiative, but the other two gun-focused ones didn't seem to participate. But we're going to see it on YouTube and Facebook. I guess they decided not to do it on LinkedIn. If they would have done this, if they're paying for this thing that I'm using, StreamYard, the Duck, then let's see. If I were to go to Duck, regular, this is what it looks like. This is the show that's happening right now, but I could start a broadcast. I guess add a destination. So I could add a Facebook, a LinkedIn, a YouTube, a Periscope, and a Twitch. And if I was paying for Duck, I could click on all of those, I think. It might be a limit of 5, but I think I could click on all of them. And then a custom RMTP is a custom stream to a different, some other platform. Now, I should probably not close out of that page. I'll just close out of that tab. So that's that. So we're going to see it on YouTube and Facebook, and not on Twitch, I guess, and LinkedIn, which who cares? I don't know if LinkedIn is bigger than other platforms, so it would have been nice to see it on other platforms, I guess. Mainly because then it gets streamed, recorded, and archived on those platforms. And since it doesn't cost nothing, might as well, but whatever. Then let's see, the organizers and many others in the gun community are disappointed that the U.S. Capitol, where the event was scheduled for a second year, changed their policies and altered the conditions of the permits. Various alternatives were considered, and the decision was ultimately made to run the rally as a virtual interactive event. This has not been uncommon in the community lately, although it's never been accomplished. I'm just going to say period. While some events like the North American Sporting Goods Wholesalers Trade Show and the Live Free or Die Range Day canceled entirely under Corona concerns, other events pushed forwards like AmCon, which I was not invited to. Never actually been invited to AmCon. I just went to the first one. I went to the second one. I went to the third one, and they quit inviting me when it was virtual. They were able to keep me from going to the fourth one. Gun Rights Policy Conference, which we all seen, and we talked about that the other day, which were both broadcast to large audiences. They keep saying the Gun Rights Policy Conference was broadcast to, they either say 30,000 or 300,000. I think Tony was saying 300,000, so that's what the number they're throwing out there. We were all there on YouTube, and you can go to YouTube, right? And go to YouTube. Was the GRPC on its own channel? I don't remember.
Oh, goodness. I can't recall either right now because I'm so focused on getting to the right page for tomorrow.
Might have been on the Second Amendment Foundations. Let's go see. Here's one, though. Yes, it was on the Second Amendment Foundation's channel. Here's part 2, which has 2,000 views. So if we go to the main channel, go to all videos, Gun Rights Policy Conference 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if they're going to count all views and stack them, is that technically accurate? If one person watched 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, then that's one viewer. So you should say there was 4,000 for the first one, 2,000 for the second one, so you lost half your viewers there. There was 1,000 for the third one, so you lost another half of your viewers. If they're going to say 4,000 plus 2,000 is 6,000, plus 1,000 is 7,000, plus 1,000 is 8,000, that's scary, but it doesn't get you to 30,000 or
no,
300,000 or 300,000. I won't go to
Not
Facebook.
even close.
Yeah, I won't go to Facebook and do the same thing, but it's ridiculous. Facebook doesn't care. Facebook is trying to compete with the big daddy, which is YouTube. So when YouTube, if I click on this video as a YouTube customer, like a signed in member of YouTube, and I look at this and I've barely looked at it, and then I look away, that's not going to count as an actual vote. There's no advertiser that wants to pay for that. YouTube knows that that's not a benefit for anybody. So I would have to go to this video and I'd have to watch it. I've already watched it, so I guess it's trying to show me the end of it. But I'd have to watch 30 full seconds of it before it even registers as a vote. You go to a platform that's trying to compete with a valid platform. Every time I jumped here, that might be 3 views, 4 views. Oh, my screen's acting up. 5 views. Oh, I had to go away and come back. 6 views. Something happened. 7 views. So now 1 viewer shows up as 7 views, like any kind of person with an inconsistent, internet connection, or someone who has something else to do in their life and comes back. So if they're going to count views on a platform that's competing with the biggest platform, that's not paying attention. So Gun Rights Policy Conference, we can talk about that more in the future. We're both broadcast to large audiences. I guess that's when I decided to go. Well, I question the large audiences. To audiences, and they're larger than no one, so technically accurate. GRPC was a steady stream of entirely recorded presentations. Not quite. It was 4 large chunks of re-recorded, conglomerated recordings. So they took recordings and re-recorded them poorly and without any, I don't know, they didn't really ever edit before. They certainly haven't ever tried editing 4 hours. So quite a few issues with volume and with inconsistent production across the spectrum. It was just a real patchwork. So they did a lot of effort and they did a lot of work, but unfortunately we had to deal with their learning curves. We had to watch them do it for the first time in front of us, as opposed to watch people who at least are comfortable with the skill set. So that was a stream of entirely recorded presentations, and then a little caveat there. Going back to Pincus, while AmCon was almost entirely live speakers, broadcast sequentially from a single stream. Oh, see, I don't know, because I wasn't invited to AmCon. The 2022 rally will combine those approaches. It's because they're afraid to let me in there, because I don't just pat them on the back for doing nothing or for doing the same thing over and over or for rebuilding mousetraps wrong. They don't like it when I challenge them on the stuff that they present to a media as valid info, when it's 8-year-old info that was Flaptrap at the time. It was stuff that they were selling on infomercials 8 years ago. But anyway, so I don't get invited to AmCon, so I really have no idea what it was like there. It was probably awesome, though. They probably really had their shit together and then just forgot how to do it for the Gun Rights Policy Conference and other things. The 2022 rally will combine those approaches with most of the speakers having record their speeches at their own locations around the U.S. and the other country, and one other country, being introduced and discussed by a team of live hosts who will be interacting with the audience. That sounds really neat. If they're paying attention and having fun, right? If they're just being mean to us and scolding us and giving us rules, that'll suck. So we'll see how that happens. See if anybody's saying anything. Again, you're welcome to join in this conversation, unlike the cowards with your typical conversations. And even tomorrow, you're not going to get a link to join the 2A rally. I'll be running a parallel simulcast, though, because they're going to be running it on a little tiny channel, whatever channel will they be running it on? Well, I guess their own little tiny channel. So they'll get some subscribers tomorrow. We'll see if they get to the 1,000 mark tomorrow. That would be a nice indicator to see how active the community is and how, I guess, aware the community is. I mean, a community watching in 2020, in October 2020, pretty much should know how YouTube works, right? Nobody should need explanation on how the YouTube system works. There might be like 15 people tomorrow who've never been online before, but I think most people are going to be pretty aware of how the systems work. So we'll see if the channel gets a lot of subscribers and if the video gets a lot of thumbs up and a lot of tags, sources from outside the video linking to it. We'll see if they even address that kind of stuff. Really, it's could be interesting. I don't think they will. Being introduced and discussed by a team of live hosts who will be interacting with the audience. I'm still not sure how that's happening. Pincus is here in Tucson right now. I guess I've heard no one's told me, but I'm guessing from conversations I've listened to that the NRH meeting is tomorrow morning. And then this thing, I guess, starts at 4. So that'll be 1 p.m. Arizona time. And, that gives us the whole morning, I guess, to be here in Arizona. But I guess I'm not sure where they're going to be broadcasting. I suspect if, Pincus could drive up to Phoenix and broadcast with Cheryl Todd and Dan Todd. They're in Phoenix. That's 2 hours away. So if you was here doing that stuff in the morning and then went up there, I have no idea. So we'll see how they actually do that, and then where the other people involved are. I forget who the other people hosting it are, if there's another person or not. The speakers, most of whom are listed below, will also be interacting in the main streams on their own watch parties on various websites and social media. So that's interesting. So the speakers will be interacting in the streams of their own watch parties. Oh, or in their own watch parties. Okay, so in the main streams. I guess when he's talking about the main streams, that's how he talks. You people are in the mainstream right now. Like right here, all you people are in the mainstream. So welcome, not me. You people are welcome. You're welcome to the mainstream. Let's see. So then we got a list of these people. 1 guy, 2 people, 3 people, and 4 people got a link. So I guess they must be probably authors over here or whatever, writers for Ammo Land. About half of them participated in last year's events, the largest pro-gun rally ever held in Washington, D.C., and the other half are first-timers. Many of them have never addressed an audience as large as this event will be. That's arrogant because he doesn't know how long this event will be. While some have been speaking nationally on gun rights issues for decades. So yeah, we've got Tony Simon, 2A for E. Christy Titus, no idea. Mosh Ture is Black Guns Matter. KD is Aiming for the Truth. Chris Chang is the Top Shot guy. I don't know who this is. Yuda's Pew Pew Jew. Eric Pratt took over for his dad at Gun Owners of America, who took over for the guy who started it all in 1975. Craig DeLuz is FPC and the California FFL Association. It's like an association of gun shops or something over there. And I always want to say it wrong, so it's Mueller. I don't know how to say it. I'm going to just say it wrong. It's not Mueller, but it's how I'm saying it. She's a 23-year cop in Tulsa, competitive shooter, started the DC Project. Alan Gottlieb, 1971. He started the Citizens Committee to Keep and Bear Arms, which hosts the Gun Rights Policy Conference since the 1980s. And then 4 years later, in 1976, 1975, he started the Second Amendment Foundation as a second organization to lobby. His first organization was an education organization, and they can only do one thing, I guess. Erin Paulette is the creator of Blazing Swords, and then she took over Pink Pistols as well. No idea who that is. Jim Irving is airline pilot who started, he helped start the Ohio state level gun owners rights group, and then Faster Saves Lives and some other things. He's a pretty cool dude. No idea who that is. She's some chick who says stuff on TV, I think. Amanda Suffolcool is a podcaster. Mark Walters is a radio guy. Rhonda Mary, some girl who talks like a baby. Cheryl Todd is a Second Amendment advocate, podcaster, and gun shop owner out of Phoenix. I don't know who this guy is. This is some chick who I heard on Cheryl Todd's show yesterday. She's super upset about stuff. So she gets all upset real fast. And I don't know. I think a lot of people that listen to the daytime chats would love this chick. She seemed real upset about some things. Crump is an editor over here on Amaland and a podcaster. Eric is the YouTube guy. I don't know who this is. Argo J is like a kid, what do you call it? Elementary school teacher in Wisconsin. And dude has been a legit regular dude sharing his experience on YouTube. Not as well, for the longest time, he wasn't doing it as some sort of, I'm better than you, so you got to do whatever I influence you to do. But instead, just some guy sharing what he's doing. And he's an interesting dude, a teacher, lives in Wisconsin, right next to Chicago. And, riding that line like a lot of teachers with understanding and living and knowing and dealing with people who are super anti-gun, but then being a gun gun person and sharing that. Interesting dynamic. And then at, where would it have been? I think it was Gun Rights Policy 2018 in Chicago is when he started talking about how had a movie in the process, and he was taking it from the level of like theory to production, and he's been working on a movie. I forget what the name of it is now, because it's changed twice at least since I've heard about the project, but it's about the experience of black males in the United States as gun owners, and I thought that was a cool concept for a project. I really wish it would have been at the time slot or whatever to be released this year instead of still being created this year, but obviously he's getting all kinds of interesting insight this year, I'm sure. No idea who this is or this person. Rebecca Schmoy is 1 Million Moms. Dang, I'm forgetting. But anyway, I just saw her post over here somewhere. Rob Pincus is a trainer and Second Amendment advocate dude on the board, or like helping to run a bunch of different 2A focused organizations. Pete Brownell runs some company, the middleman that buys stuff from manufacturers and sells it to individuals at a markup, makes a shit ton of money, and then gives some of it back to the community, and everybody thinks he's awesome. I don't know who this guy is. Locked and Loaded Latinos is probably the best podcast on the internet right now. They interview people, the regular people that are a couple, kind of getting into guns and experiencing the community and sharing that with everybody. So awesome window, awesome perspective, and awesome effort by a couple kids that are kicking some butt on 2A. And then this chick who I keep forgetting what she represents, but I see her on Instagram all the time, Mary something or another, and I forget what organization, but she's got curly hair if I remember right. Let's see, half of them participated, I already said that, and a couple of these people hate, just going to say a couple of these people hate the idea of rallies. They won't accept rallies, and it's unprecedented to have them speak at a rally. In 30 years, they've never spoken at a rally, some of these people. And I don't know how they got them to show up to this one, but it'll be interesting to hear what some of these people say at a rally, since they've always hated the concept of rallies. Super worried about being embarrassed if people don't show up to rallies, maybe, let's say, but put it that way. Alan Gottlieb and Eric Pratt have both been recognized as leaders in the gun committee for a long time, since 30 years. Emmeline, News, John Crump, and Maj are both known to tens of thousands of gun owners, really? But they are newer names. Most viewers will be hearing from Leo something, a Muslim guns right advocate, and Johanna, half a Locked and Loaded for the first time. In regard to rally goals and the speaker selection, the organizing committee says the following on their YouTube channel. The 2A rally is the most diverse collection of speakers from the gun community ever put into one event. This is our second annual event in support of the Second Amendment. One of our key goals is to remind everyone that American gun owners are part of every demographic group, lifestyle, and political affiliation. They have many different perspectives and opinions on guns and every other topic. There is no one voice that speaks for us and no one description that fits us all. We believe that this collection of speakers tells that story clearly, except for old people and except for the differently abled. The 2A rally is a non-sponsored event organized by a committee of volunteers and funded anonymously. No speakers were compensated in any way for their participation, and they covered all of their own expenses. This year there wasn't a lot of expenses, but obviously that disclaimer is important for all the people that are like, here's why I'm going to justify my laziness or why I'm going to justify my inaction. And then they claim that it's somehow, in the pocket of something. Last year's event was considered a huge success, although many were skeptical. An event that had no sponsorship or major gun rights organization officially backing it. Some even worried that the anonymous event was some kind of a setup or hoax. This year, the event is again being run without any official sponsorship or advertising, and only some of the people involved in organizing it are known publicly, and most of them will be hosting the event live. So that's Rob Pincus, basically. Rob Pincus is the one public committee member who worked on the first event as well. He will be joined behind the scenes this time by at least 3 of this year's speakers, Diana, Chris, and Cheryl Todd. Okay, I knew there was some other speakers. I've never seen Diana Mueller on live, have I? Only as a guest. I've seen Cheryl do everything, so I'm confident in her abilities. I would think Chris could know stuff, but I've never actually seen him host anything. But I've never seeked out. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Chris host something himself. He could be capable. He could be a moron. I really don't know. The event is encouraging those interested. The event is encouraging those interested in baiting their website at. What the hell does that mean? The event is encouraging those interested in baiting their visiting probably their website to Second Amendment rally to register their email for updates and emailed links to live streams on Saturday. So they didn't tell anybody anywhere, but I guess they're going to send us a link on Saturday. You can also set a reminder at their YouTube channel, which I've never done and I'm not going to recommend, showing a blah, blah, blah to Saturday's countdown. Alternatively, the rally will be streamed on OpsLens and Facebook. So there you go. If you were go to their page or whatever. The lineup is definitely diverse and not just superficially. There's a great deal of thought diversity promised from speech. Oh, there's a great deal of thought diversity promised from the speeches to go along with the racial background, gender, lifestyle, political, and religious varieties represented. So there you go. Then we got a bunch of comments, 10 comments. So how long has this been up? Today? So this went up today and already got 10 comments. That's pretty good. Let's hope that Facebook and YouTube don't shut it down for hate speech. So there you go. Some guy who's never watched any of the other ones, even the ones referenced in here that didn't get shut down, but way to perpetuate a unjustified fear, guy. Virtually, really? Come on, folks. You're just encouraging compliance with the COVID farce. So fuck it. If they're going to be mean to us, we should go to sleep. Lay down. Then show us how you would do it. Interesting. So that's a reply to that guy. I'm not in the list, so it'll be a bust. Just kidding. Someone needs to get Dr. Edwin Vieira on the list. So it's actually about the Second Amendment, all of it. So is Dr. Edwin Vieira the guy that was responsible for challenging the what are they called? The studies with the what's its face at the CDC? No. Holds a degree at Harvard and blah, blah, blah for more than 30 years, emphasis on constitutional, just some lawyer. I don't know who he is. Anybody know who this guy is?
No.
Boom. I think it's mentioned something about the email. I think there will be 2 sent out Saturday if you register. Oh, okay. I got to go turn off this trip. Hold on.
Does anybody out in the chat want to jump in tonight? We got plenty to talk about. It'd be nice to hear some voices that might have had a better time being raised at an in-person rally, but just watching a sporting event or something like that, you can jump out of your computer chair and cheer all you want.
Good point. There's a link, so you don't have to be an observer. In fact, you're encouraged, if you're an observer, to get the hell out of here and go watch somebody else's chat. This is a conversation. You're encouraged to be part of it. Why is that thing still leaking? It takes 2 hands now to turn off that damn faucet. I definitely got to change that. There's not even going to be a gasket before too long. I'm just curious about these comments because, oh my God, what's going on with this?
Whoa, Nelly. Well, I hope he's all good. So one of the things that I was going to mention was you just informed me of the fact that it's set to be a 3-hour-long event, and with 30-something speakers, that's less than 10 minutes each. And at GRPC, we certainly sat through some stuff that could have been done in less than 10 minutes. But I would think with a national event, be it live or virtual, that folks would want to be a little bit more heavily involved. Wonder why? Well, I don't know why. Anybody else got an idea?
Wait, what? What was the question?
Oh, I guess I'll rephrase to be why is people's enthusiasm so dimmed just because it's not being held in person? And then did anybody out in the chat have something they would feel like, getting up and cheering for tomorrow. Not just what we can expect, but what do we all desire? Because this is what we have. This is what we have available. Pitching a bitch, even at all, and especially at this late hour. You don't bandwagon the the people, the I feel offended party. Straighten up and get back in the game.
Or shut up. I mean, I'm butthurt about shit all the time, but you don't need to like stand in front of everybody and alert to them how you're butthurt about it. Some dude was on, I think it's a dude, but it might be a chick. I really don't know. But there was, who was on Crump earlier? Tony Simon was on Crump earlier today, 2 p.m. my time. And somebody was out there. It was like me, one other person, and this guy, girl, whoever it was. It's somebody who's always on these, not my chats. They don't have the balls to jump my chats, but they'll jump into other people's chats and talk. And they were like, blah, blah, barely so stupid or whatever, and blah, blah. And it's like, what the fuck is the point of coming into a pre-rally hype? Is your goal to shut it down? Like, you want everybody to go, oh, you're right, let's not do it. Or do you want to be talked into it? But why else would you go to something? It's like going to the other team's pep rally and be like, I don't like this team. What's the point of that? Yeah, okay, great. Like, you don't like the team. Have your own rally about how much you hate the team and get a bunch of people together. But go into the place where they, are interested in that position or that team or whatever, then I don't understand that. That's just looking for attention or just, I don't know, doing Bloomberg's job for him, right? Like, hey, I don't like this, so I'm going to go derail it. Therefore, I'll I'll show them I'll be right because I'll have derailed it and it will have been non-productive because of me. I don't get that. It doesn't necessarily work. It might spoil or taint a conversation in a text chat, but it doesn't stop the event. The oblivious participants don't know if the text chat went well or not. They don't use that as an indicator or any kind of gauge. So they could care less really what happens in a live chat. So that part I really don't get. It's just, I guess, to get attention or, hey, they're going to be talking about something. So if I'm belligerent in front of them, they'll have to address me. I don't know. I don't really know.
Well, I'm sorry to offer a football analogy, but after all, my Nebraska Cornhuskers are picking up Ohio State tomorrow at noon. But here's my deal. We are the equivalent of those who show up the night before a game to get a good parking spot and a tailgate spot. We overnight and we stay up talking about everything we're excited about for the coming day. Usually we'll crash out about dawn and you're back up for coffee and, biscuits or pancakes or whatever. Okay. And then you're you're doing your preparations. You're putting on your fan gear. You're brushing up on new media stuff and preparing to go into the stadium. Well, it's a virtual stadium this year, folks. So, can't we just, I don't want to say can't we all just get along, but I did. Can't we all just get along on this dropping of our spots, where we want to be and who we want to talk to and who looks interesting, and might have a different view. And you don't find out till you put on your fan gear the next day, really, who exactly you're rooting for. So, we come in equals, and I'll support your ability to kick my team's ass, but can we talk about it? Can we still have fun afterwards? Can we share some food? And can we share some camaraderie? And can we build on making this a spot that we gather every game for every season? Participation is the key here. Even if you want to stand outside, listen to the radio broadcast because you don't want to be in the stadium, that's cool. That doesn't mean you're any less a fan of the team you're there to support. And we're Team 2A. Virtual or not, announced early enough or not, all these other little bits and bobs that people want to bitch about. It's too easy to throw stones when you're virtually anonymous. Back to you, Jay.
Right on. You brought up a bunch of interesting points there. Dang it. And then while you were talking, somebody purchased one of the value stores. So I went over and looked. I don't know if that person is listening live or not, but if you are, ever listening to the show, I was muted, so you didn't hear the little cash register thing go off. But normally I have this old-fashioned cash register noise, make a noise if somebody purchases something. There's a little bit of a delay, I suppose, for the machines to figure it out and send me the sound. But if you mention the Daily Gun Show in the comments when you make an order, then or say something in here like I just ordered or something, then I'll try to remember to put some Daily Gun Show stuff into your loop. But it is Free Patch Friday. I want to thank everyone very much for participating today. A bunch of people participated. It wasn't all rally flags either. Some people bought some books, which helps a lot. I take some paper from Walmart and I turn it in, using my printer into a book, and that's a lot of profit to keep all the engines running. So much appreciate the people that have been purchasing stuff over at the store. It's what keeps us going, and it's nice to have. I think this isn't the last week of the month or the last Friday of the month, but next week it'll be Halloween. It'll be different. Everybody will be focused on that. So I really do appreciate the. There's a big bill comes up every year. I have two big bills that come up, September and December. So it goes a long way towards helping out with that, because there's not a lot of money to go around. I have to accumulate what little there is for these big bills that come up. Anyhow, without getting in too much into that, thanks everybody who participates over at the store, and thanks to the person who purchased something just now, purchased a flag, it looks like just now. And some of the stuff you brought up. Now, first off, I'm not going to try to make you repeat it all, but a couple of different things came to mind. When you're talking, I understand what you're doing there. First off, we've got people that they don't care if it's their objection isn't to that it's being online. There's people that object to it. There's people that object to just all kinds of stuff. I'm not even going to get into it because over the years I've failed to now been impressed anymore when somebody comes up with a new characteristic of anything to be upset about, because it's just some people are looking for a new creative way to be the one who's offended or upset by the way that something's gone down. So the online portion of it, I suspect there's some people who do really have a problem with that. I just don't think that that's the biggest objection. I think the bigger objection is just rallies in general. The idea of trying or attempting or encouraging or being satisfied with any results of any attempt to bring our community together. There's just some people, I think it's the concept that there's people that think we got to win. I really think that's all it is. There's two different ways of looking at challenges or games or competition, or anytime you're going to interact with someone where you both want a different objective. You either have a game or you have a long game, a short game or a long game, right? You have a baseball game where there's rules and a bunch of things to do, and it's going to end when those things have finished, right? Things are going to happen and there will be an end. There will be maybe I picked a bad sport, a sport that doesn't have overtime or whatever. There's going to be an end to most short game type of shit. Long game, your objective is to survive. Your objective is just to be in the game. Your objective is to continue playing. So anti-gunners play long game. They don't actually care. It helps them if there are free guns. If they had all guns restricted, they'd still be doing their thing, but they're just as happy having guns available to us as they are without guns, because they really don't care about that. They care about the game. And too many gun owners think of this as, this rally will finish it, or this rally will solve it, or this rally will get us to the place where we can stop all this. And that's not realistic. That's not the way that this game works. And if you're going to play a game where you keep going to plateaus, well, that'll fix it. Then it'll be the end. This will be the finish line. And you continually perceive it as, they moved the finish line. They changed the rules, and now I got to keep playing. This will never end, and you're getting upset because of the game. That's your perception that's causing all your stress. That's just because you don't understand the actual game that we're playing. I think that's the big problem, is people see these rallies as these are objectives that once completed give us number of points or get us to a goal, or we get to the next level in our video game or the next inning in our sports or whatever. And that's one way to look at it. And I suspect that's why people get frustrated and eventually wear themselves out. Oh, we're never going to win, and they leave. If you look at it like, well, I'm going to be doing this for my entire life, And hopefully over that time, I'll figure out systems that I can leave to the next generation to make their efforts more efficient, their interactions like this uh, less need to learn and to experiment. And hopefully we can come up with some strategies and some techniques that we can offer to the next generation so they can play the role of awareness of the long game, so they can keep poking the other side, especially the other side who wants to play the short games, keep poking them effectively to ruin their morale and to mess with their optimism, because that's really what we're dealing with here. And I don't think our goal, and something else you mentioned there, was I think you were trying to give people, I don't know, calm their jets, of course, but give people reason to think about why they might like this. I don't think I quit giving, my objective is not to get people who don't like the rally to like the rally. Because honestly, F them. If they don't like the rally, who wants them around, right? If your goal is not to be part of others, then why would others want you around? Go do your own loner thing. Loners are awesome and they're pathfinders and they do awesome things. And then 90% of loners sit there and observe and do nothing and critique, right? But loners are awesome. We need all the loners we can get, especially loners that are awesome and do shit. Those loners, we only see their ass usually because they're doing their thing, right? The loners that all we hear is their voices and all we see is their opinions is because they're observers, and they're loners because they have other issues and they're not interested in participating. Those who are willing or see the benefits and occasionally participating are those that love the idea of working with others all the time, those that have plenty of resources or skill sets to offer a bigger group and don't have direction or don't have, the focus or the awareness to know where to focus their efforts. Those people are looking for a way to get together and to harness that massive collaborative resource that we have as the United States, as Americans, like to say, as citizens of this country, that that's how we do that. So there's a bunch of people that are frustrated that it hasn't already happened or that we don't work together better, but they don't see this as a step towards that. I suspect they see this as yet another finish line that we didn't cross altogether in some sort of weird non-communist Borg-like lockstep, right? Like some fantasy that they can't even really understand. They just know that it isn't what they expected. So I'm ranting. You gonna throw anything in there? We're at an hour.
No,
really
absolutely. I want to start off with something just about rallies in general. The idea that the folks who have the position that you suggested of this will be the one to win it all. In stark contrast, we had last year's rally, and your crowd estimates were much more realistic from what I saw from several different sources. NRA rallies are just smoking most anything that we're doing as a 2A in the 2A community and as participants. That's the kind of goal that we should have. I get the idea that the NRA is a bit like your favorite grandfather, your favorite grandpa. But grandpa's mind is always open to his kids, his grandkids, and to what they bring to the table, filtered through a generation in the middle. I'm going to suggest I'm a Gen Xer. We are the filter in the middle. We took the direct knowledge from someone that we called parent, and we want to pass it on to child. We need to make sure that that transfer is done in as complete and a responsible way as possible. So when you went on later to say or to make comment on the importance of passing on the good bits and going through your own trial and error, the plan will never be finished. It's always going to be subject to change. And if you're not adaptable to that, then you are going to be overwhelmed. So strong voices need to be heard, but all voices need to be considered. And the voices of youth, I feel so strongly about this. That is how we get the things accomplished. I went and did a couple of quick notes here. March on Washington, 1968, In the Presence of Change. Million Man March, don't remember the year, is a candidate for the Where Are They Now series. Never did it again. Can't see that lasting effects have really taken over yet. So, what is the average gap for a social consciousness to actually be turned into action instead of just thought? We got to promote that. And gee, maybe it's because I know you dig the debate. But one of the things that I dig about the debate is when you bring somebody over to your side in a, change my mind kind of format, they are so much more willing to let you in as as a fellow traveler and somebody who just might have a different view, and bringing those people over, not as strong as the lone wolves, but, and I'm not out to proselytize, but if somebody wants to talk about it, the takeaway is going to be that we're going to be sharing more than just a conversation. Sorry to ramble. Pick it up.
Right on. I guess I don't quite get that last part. So.
Well, I'm sorry. What was my last part? Oh, the youth. Oh, well, like when we were using the 50 States of 2A, and you suggested this would be a great resource for kids. And then we talked about all the reference books that we used to have growing up and how we key in on all that information because we were tabular, we were blank slates. We filled up that slate, both sides, erased it, and kept going. Some of us have lost a lot of that to, memory and age marching forward. But yeah, we're the filter generation. I guess was another thing I was saying. Can you redirect me?
No, you brought up a bunch of points and I'm reading at the same time. So I think without rewinding, it was, it was just something, it wasn't really about the 2A as much as, was it, it was a little more of a tangent, more of like, it wasn't the debate thing. No, I've lost it.
Oh, wait. The contrast against the NRA rallies and the folks who think that this rally is the one to change them all. This is the tide that reaches the beach.
No, I dig what you were getting there. It wasn't so much I challenged. I was just gonna something about the last piece, but I can't remember for the life of me now what the last piece you're saying there. It wasn't really on the subject of the rally as much as just I guess give come a conversation. But like I say, I was also just another comment came in, so I just started reading, and that's never good when we're live. But here's the best part: you can comment. So this isn't scripted, so it's not like we can just jump back to page 3 and reference whatever we just said.
Right.
So y'all can be doing the same thing as I do, especially when one of us kind of talks for a bit. Is whenever anybody talks for a bit, you start and knowing what they're going to say, because we've either said it before, it's it's obvious what we're about to say, so your mind starts to take off on these tangents or from whatever we've been saying. And you've got the power of a notebook that you get to share with everybody. So if we're saying something, or if any live show that you're watching, somebody's saying something, make a note right here, like a good point. And then that way the conversation keeps going. And 5 minutes later, who remembers where you were? But oh yeah, that point over there, that note in the text here, chat that went by, the flow that went by, text chat stream, I guess is a better word. It reminds me of that piece, that element that I wanted to address. So I think one of the things, because the other problem is I probably had like 3 or 4 things as you were talking there that I was trying to keep track of, and I wasn't taking my own advice and writing notes, but you'll see me do that occasionally. A lot of times I'll do it in the off-air side, but sometimes I'll do it on the on-air side because I'm lazy. Anyway, you'd mentioned about 3 or 4 points there that were good, but anybody who's listening can be part of this and help keep the people that are talking live over here, redirect us back to stuff we may have looped around or missed like this. Or if you've caught something that comes up, then say it, like a couple of people have. So Ozzy had pointed out earlier, and that's what I've been highlighting here, that rallies are a chance to build relationships to further our goals. Yeah, and obviously the people that are there, but I think there's something else when we're talking about these, the people that show up in the live chat, you get to see who they are if you say something. Even if you just come in and go 13th thumb or something, or I agree, or, that kind of stuff. Then at least people see that you're there, and now you have an idea of who's paying attention, who's there. Just like when you go to a rally, you have an opportunity to look left and right. You know who's on the stage, right? You know who you came to see, or why you went to this event. But you can also take a look left and right and see who's there. And like in DC, it was super interesting because we were all standing in this. You can see the picture right here. We were all kind of standing in this grass, which is just a big square rectangle yard in front of the Capitol here. And we were taking up about, I don't know, an eighth of that whole grass, spread out to take up about a quarter of the grass. And then, but if we were really crowded, we would have only been a small portion of what could have been there. But we were spread out and everything. And, just comfortable distance from each other. Everybody's talking and stuff. I went around the outside of this. There's a sidewalk all over the place. This is in DC, right? So, there's all there was that sports thing happening, but this is the capital of the United States. So just every nationality in the world, people are walking up here and taking pictures. You can barely tell in this picture, but there was construction going on. So even though the stairs look like they're unblocked, down at the bottom of the stairs, there was fences and the walls and stuff. So you couldn't get up into the second floor or nothing. And there was some construction here. But in spite of that, people were still walking up right to the construction gates. And you're taking a picture up in the air, not at the gates anyway. So plenty of people were walking in a steady stream. I mean, it wasn't like crowded, but there was at no time was there no one walking across here. And these, again, were you could just tell, all different nationalities, all different kinds of peoples coming to the capital of the United States. And there's this rally happening. And there's a bunch of don't tread on me flags and American flags and stuff like this. Come and take it with an AR-15. So it's got to be pretty obvious. And it's like 90% big fat white guys. It's got to be pretty obvious that it's some sort of a gun thing, but not at all violent. I mean, I don't know how anyone could have perceived it as violent because it was just a bunch of people standing around with no emotion or no chanting, no volume other than a quiet conversation amplified by a whole bunch of people having quiet conversations, no yelling, nothing, no loudspeakers, no hype or nothing, just pretty chill. And that had to be observed by I don't know how many people. Then, because of I don't know DC that good, but mainly on this side, not so much on this side, but on this side, tons of people, just constantly, tons of people walking from somewhere back over here to the baseball or football thing was happening behind whoever took this picture, was happening behind them. So there was just a ton of people walking this side. And never so many that it was like loud or like a parade of people, but almost like it was almost a parade's worth of people. And because they weren't, and they could have, because it was a sports thing, they could have just as easily, if there was some sort of sports song they could have been singing, they probably would have been, because they were all happy that their sports team did something. So they were 100% focused on whatever their sports team did. All these people were oblivious to them. But anyway, that was also an interesting thing. So I sat on this big statue over here for a while and just kind of watched the reactions of the baseball people who probably had no idea that this gun thing was happening. And very few of them gave a shit, but a whole bunch of them looked over. And that was just as KD was doing his 1776 speech that he does. And if you're thinking of somebody who's walking all the way down this grass and then they had the street blocked off, so then all the way over here to get over here where they were going, they had to walk like 2 lengths of like all the way around us, down one side and the other. So they could have heard quite a bit of a conversation. And that was just as KD was doing his thing. So it was kind of interesting to watch the reaction of the people who were like, oh, wait a minute, I'm hearing something. What am I hearing? What did he just say? And then look over to the rally. So that was kind of interesting too. So yeah, there was, I guess that element that there's the other people who get to at least experience our community. We get to be we are a representation of the community, but they get to experience our community. Because how many people in the regular world are like going to go to a gun range? Like nobody, right? Like nobody's going to walk into a gun shop just to see what it's like. Anyhow, so then there was another one. here. So Pincus mentioned something about the email. I think there will be 2 sent out Saturday if you have registered links. Oh, he was on Hank Strange. He said he's attending the NRA meeting, and then him, Cheryl, and Chris will be hosting and interacting with the live chat. So there you go.
Yeah, echoes of the GRPC.
Well, no, GRPC? No, because nobody from well, I guess they were there to block me, but nobody was really saying anything from GRPC. They would, if you said something, they may chime in once in a while, but as much as like your grandparents from the living room, if you're making too much noise in the TV room, like they're not comfortable having it. These people, Cheryl and Pincus at least, have been on more live conversations than most everybody else probably. So they got to be more comfortable than,
Oh yeah, I would imagine so. I guess I was thinking more in terms of the watch pre-recorded and then have a live Q&A element.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, I don't get any impression that they recorded for a 4 hour. Well, it can't be a 4 hour block, so it's going to be 3 hours. I get the impression it'll be, let's press play on this one presentation and then talk about it. Let's press play on the next presentation. Address the next I think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to go back and forth, recording live. I don't think it's going to be live to present 2 hours of recording to go live to represent an hour of recording to go live, like the GRPC was. Although GRPC,
right on. Yeah. Yeah, that's a much better way to swing. Cool.
Let's see.
So we got a bunch of people who don't want to identify, which is not usually an issue for me at all, and something that I support resistance to. But nobody's telling us where they're living. I put out a roll call a couple of times, and out of curiosity to see if there was a concentrated area of the country that was picking us up with greater frequency, and also was asking how people 2A on Friday. And I free patch Friday on Fridays to 2A, and did an order yesterday. I'm one of the folks who picked up a book, so looking forward to that coming. Really pleased that you're putting forth so much awesome effort, and hope others reach out and at least go cruise by the site, see what you might find. And will somebody please tell me, how do you 2A on Friday?
I like to do that sometimes too. Like ask what state people are in, especially in a giant chat. In this chat, there's not so many people, so we'll see if we get some response or not. I kind of know where most of them are, I think. But yeah, I appreciate it. The Patreons have allowed me to take time to do stuff like the project. So this year, with the way things went this year, but even as the way things were stacking ahead of time, I knew this was going to be an important year. Election year, my perspective, because our grandparents are handing the baton to our children, at least generationally, as far as their influence on the election. So whatever influence the baby boom generation had is a large population number, and that generation had a lot of population. They're dwindling. They're passing away and becoming less active as voters. So they're going to be catered to less, and they're going to be replaced with our children's generation, which are never voted before in a national election. They were born after Y2K. What the 9/11 was before they remember things. It was when they were children, or even before they were born potentially. So it's just a different group of people, and because they're a larger population than us, they're a bigger influence in the vote. I think we're something like low 20%, whatever generation we are, or the mix of whatever generations we are. We're the greatest generation, not they're dead, the boomers, our parents, were something like 36% of the influence. So they've been running the country for a long time, and that's why all these old people are boomers, right? Like all the people in positions of infested bureaucracy, like all those people that are just festering, right, that have infected us. Those people are all boomers, right? Those people are all aging, but it's because they represented a huge portion of our population. The next level or whatever, they're just bigger than us. They're not as big as the boomers, but they're bigger than us, so they have more, they matter more. Plus, they'll be voting longer than us. We have some amount of cycles left, and then we're not relevant at all. So, it'll go on to the next. It's always going to go on to the next generations. But it is, this was literally the baton changing hands for that, and we were basically just at least us, our generation. When I say we've just been watching that happen. Nothing we can do about it. Just literally out of our control. We're watching one big group hand off a baton to another big group. I have not seen anything that addresses that. I've only gleaned that. I've never seen that presented really that I can think of. I've only gleaned that from watching other presentations that sort of alluded to it. I've certainly never seen anything that was like, and I don't know why. I think it's shame on us all for missing this opportunity. But I've seen nothing that's like, hey, grandparents, your hand in this baton, this influence in our country, this citizenship, this whatever it's called, like this, what's the other word for that? There's another word for that. Civic awareness or whatever, like you've got to pass that on. You didn't pass it to your kids and they didn't pass it to their grandkids. So you're about to pass, literally. Are you going to leave this planet without having done that efficiently, effectively? Like you've already failed, and now therefore your children have failed. So is your last step as you pass the baton to whisper something to those people, or are you going to do it quietly and just watch it all happen, just drift, right? I mean, that's kind of fatalistic, but at the same time, I've never heard anybody like giving it to the old people. They got all the time in the world. They got all the money. Most of them are retired comfortably and are just sitting around playing stupid phone games or wasting their time watching 3-letter news things scare them to death, right? Like they could be motivated to empower the younger kids who could probably take a lesson. I would think even if you didn't have parents who were knowledgeable and passed on information to you, that's still got to be in us as mammals, right? We look to older people for info. So you would think if grandparents started dishing out info, I think it would be appreciated. People would start listening to it. But anyway, that aspect of the election and everything was, I thought was a big deal. I don't know where the hell I got off on this tangent, but is it from this one? It's nice to see rallies, like-minded people encourage each other. Yeah, I don't know where the hell I was going. That's a rant that spun out. So that's what happens when you're an hour into a show, and it's just all on me and DJ's backs. So there's 9 people out there. Yeah, I don't know where the hell I was going with that one. I'll just leave it. It's Friday, so it was a foul ball. It was going somewhere, and then it lost traction, and just somebody caught it maybe. People are answering your question, though. Tulsa, Nebraska, Southern Illinois. This guy is in one of the Carolinas, mountains of the Carolinas. Let's see. So let's go back. Right on. My granddaughter's first presidential election. And maybe there's some part of it where the political strategists realize that if they want I believe, the active, aware young kids who I think aren't stupid. I think they're the lot smarter and whatnot than a lot of people give them credit for or whatever. We look at the low-hanging fruit. The extremes get the attention. So yeah, there's going to be sloths and dumbasses, but I haven't seen anything pointing at the geniuses of this generation. So till I see some equal representation, I don't believe any of the whatever they're giving us as far as the perception of this generation or what. Anyway, these people are pretty smart. So I'm curious to see what they. I guess not just the results of the election, but like how they get organized or lack of, or how they get motivated maybe. We saw a lot of organizations happen in 2015. Like, will this create a bunch of be my son's first presidential election to vote in. He was born in 2001. So if I did my math correctly, 19. I don't know. I remember voting the first time. It was pretty fun, but it wasn't all that, it wasn't a big election that I remember right. There was maybe the drug war, maybe the it wasn't really the Cold War, but it was sort of the like build up. There was like the, they call it, there was like the military budget or something, I think was sort of a big deal back in the day. Like there are people that wanted a giant military budget because that's what was going to keep the world at peace. And then people that were like, the world's at peace. We don't need a big budget anymore.
I think and we don't want to spend $12,000 on a toilet seat or $28 on a 10-penny nail. I was part of that crew. What I saw as being maybe a positive path was shutting down some of the bases on foreign soil. Bringing guys back home, guys and gals back home, and service dogs as well. That group has just tripped my trigger tonight. I think I'm going to have to look into that deeper. But yeah, again, it's a get in where you fit in sort of thing, and don't let other people quash your voice.
Well, I'm trying to think of like what was the election issues back then. It might have been some like where the cars were going to be made, because I think in those days it was still like Detroit was wavering. It was probably still, I don't know anymore because I wasn't paying that much attention, if it was still like the #1 car production in the world, but it was certainly crumbling at that point. Like it was people were going to smaller cars in Japan, and every place that was making tiny cars were being like accepted. I guess it was way before they were liked, but they were being accepted and people were willing to buy them. And that was just starting to scare the car manufacturers. So that was a big issue, and maybe steel and maybe oil and stuff. But it was nothing like, it wasn't really too many social issues back then. But anyway, so it's just anyway, I don't think there was anywhere near as much stress. There was just the typical, here's the points of tension between the two political parties, and now we're going to talk about those. But there was nothing like no pivotal, at risk, big deal crap, imminent that I can remember. In my first election, I'm just trying to think back to my first election.
Wait a second. If that's after 1985, so it would have been the 88 election, it would have been HIV was the big social issue.
Oh, hell no. No, I don't remember when I first voted. I mean, whatever. I first voted, HIV might have been a thing, but I can't remember anybody giving a shit about it at the presidential election. Maybe I mean, you brought it up and I never even thought about it, but I
just recall that in 1986, 85 or 86 was the year that Randy Schilt's now famous book "And the Band Played On" was published, and that was a dictionary thick scathe of what had been going on and what needed to be done. And yeah, it did take, it took years, but I was thinking maybe it was by 88. My bad.
I just don't remember. I mean, I don't know. And like I say, I'm just trying to think back, and there was just nothing was making it sound like this is the election that's so important and you have to. It's just sort of like, it's time to do elections again, just like it's time to do the census again, or it's, there's just these period, it's time to do the Olympics again. They didn't make such a like critical thing about it. But anyway, so we were talking about people's, I guess, the generations first at bat here or whatever. I'm all over the place tonight, so that's what happens when there's no script, and we're over an hour into it, and it's not like we've had a bunch of main direction, maybe talking about the rally a little bit, but otherwise we've just been all over the place like pinball game tonight. You gonna make it to Wanamaker in a couple weeks? I doubt it, only because I'm still poor and I don't have any I don't see any building a new widget or something that I can sell before then. So yeah, I'd like to, but I did ask around. I guess the other thing I was holding out hopes is that somebody I knew would be going to it, so I could either tag a ride or what's that called? I'm gonna say hijack. That ain't the damn word. Hitchhike to Tulsa or something, but that's not looking good. So I'm not sure. I'd like to, but the other thing is I need to tune up the van. So it's not like I can just. Sometimes when the van is working good, I could just say, "Hey, yeah, let's take a trip with it." It's not that it's bad right now. It's just that I haven't worked on it in so long, and it's sort of just, been in a state of sitting there. I wouldn't be comfortable driving a long trip without just looking at it all again. It's good weather now. I'd have the time and stuff. It's just that if I'm not making a trip, I'm not going to spend, 2 days working on the van to let it sit there again. I'll just wait and work on the van later. So, yeah, I'm just not sure. I'd really, really like to. Not only would I like to see Wanamaker just because it's cool, I'd really like to see what the turnout is this year, this time, to be able to compare it with stuff. But
everything this year is new and different. It's just whether or not it's how they represent the past examples, and with all the increased owners, Nix's checks up everywhere, 4473 is just blazing through everything. It's definitely a place to find out what's going on right now and have a whole lot of opinions to sift through on what's going to happen next. Midwest is not a bad place to be for that. So.
Well, and I'm thinking of it, I guess, in comparison or perspective. So I haven't been to a zillion of those shows because it's so far away and it takes some effort. It cost me like $500 in gas alone to get over to it, plus like a week's worth of not doing other things that would make money. So, taking a week off basically. And I've tried to set up tables there twice or three times, twice at least, maybe three times, I guess, 4 times if I count sharing tables, maybe even 5 times if I count sharing tables. And my stuff is too weird and like self-explanatory enough that it lends itself to a gun show. Like you walk past the table and look at a table of, like, let's say I put out the 50 states of 2A. That's just not going to jump off the table at somebody. It's the decks of cards and stuff. I've tried different ways to display them. Patches, I just don't have a variety. And my designs are supposed to be on the subtle side or the nod to gun people, wink, wink, but not in your face. And that kind of stuff, lends itself to somebody who understands the product and the motivation of the company or something. But on a gun show table, it just gets walked past. So worst thing I can think of ever doing is having to sit at a gun show and at one table and not be able to go to the rest of the gun show. I literally hate that more than anything. So I really don't like getting a table unless I make money. And if I've done things before to make money at a gun show, but that's usually selling things I have that are cool that people go to a gun show to buy. That's different. I don't know if I could collect that kind of stuff to go to Wanamaker, because Wanamaker is a kind of a unique show. I've brought AK stuff there before. Nothing, not even like hardly any interest, let alone sales. It's just not that kind of show. So the stuff I own doesn't lend itself to Wanamaker. I've paid for the trip before, just selling stuff to friends, bring in stuff that, we arranged on conversations or whatever. Hey, you want to buy this? Yes. Then, or you three want to buy it? Yes. We'll figure out a price. Like that'll pay for my gas. I'll bring it. I just didn't have that opportunity this time around. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not putting it out of the question because I could probably get my shit together in like 4 or 5 days, and be there. I don't want to do it that way. The other thing is, if I'm going to drive all the way to Tulsa, I don't have nothing else to do. Like it's not, I'm not a commuter or like a truck driver going to Tulsa and back on somebody else's vehicle wear and tear and somebody else's gas money. I'd be driving, what is that, 1,200 miles or something? And if I'm driving that long anymore, I want to go there and maybe drive straight there, but then mosey back. But ideally, mosey there and mosey back. So get the most effective use out of everything. Problem with going to Tulsa is there ain't nothing in New Mexico. New Mexico is a big wasteland. So all of that distance is worthless. You have to just drive across New Mexico. I mean, there's things I can stop at, but there's only a few things, and I've seen them before. So that means I got to get to Dallas or San Antonio or Austin or someplace and spend the time there, either before or after, or go to Colorado or something like that. The Kansas Boot Hill Museum just got rebuilt. The last time I went past there in 19, it was in the midst of being built. So, there's other things to do. And that would be, again, I'm not going to drive all the way to Tulsa and then not do something else on the way back or on the way there. And that would be more gas and more time. So it turns into, way more than just deciding to go to Phoenix. Phoenix is a big trip for me. It's $75 in gas, maybe $50, but depending on gas prices, it's some amount of money. It's not just let's just do it on a whim like it used to be. But at least that I can do in 2 hours and be back, and it takes 4 hours worth of travel. But if I'm going to spend 16 hours worth of travel, like I said, I'd rather get as much bang for the buck out of that trip as possible. So I just don't know. I guess the other option would be rent a vehicle, rent something with low gas mileage or high gas mileage, a little vehicle, just book out there like some kind of, and let's say rice burner. Is that racist? But book out there, before I had the big dog and I'd slept in the thing. If I went out there and got a hotel, I could do it that way. I don't know if that's cheaper or not. So that's a good question. I think Clover is still attempting to sort out who's all going for his assistance or whatever in getting facilitating the interaction with the show and stuff. Plus, I'd just like to go promote the show. I mean, hell, it'd be awesome to promote Wanamaker again. So that's interesting. DJ's asking, how do you 2A? And what is this? Polars? No? How do you say that? Polars? No? I don't know how to say that. But they're saying, I'm still deciding. What are your most enthusiastic energies when it comes to the rights in Bill of Rights? My first selection was 92, voted for Bush. However, my priorities have definitely changed. That might have been mine. It was either that or 88, I guess, huh? I don't think it was 88. So it must have been 92. I don't think there's an answer to that one, though. I met you there the first time Clover and Ghost went.
1988 was HW and Dukakis, and I could just remember all those dopey all those commercials of Dukakis popping his head on the top of a tank. They just like ripped that guy. And he had a couple other, which could be considered now very minor scandals. I don't know how those presidents then would react to the scrutiny now.
He's married and he was holding hands with that girl. We got a picture of it, and we're going to show your wife. It was like, I won't run for office. I'm not going to run for office.
Yeah, wasn't it on a boat called the Monkey Business that girl was sitting on his lap? Jeez.
Well, yeah, but that was, it wasn't like, here's a raw sex tape, but it was like, do we need to show more? Like, here's you lollygagging with your girlfriend on your boat while you're married. So I think there was more, what's the word? Like they would leave it there. They didn't have to be like, now do you want to see him going at it, like with the webcam footage? It was probably also a level of, you couldn't cram a video down. You couldn't get a camera into somebody's hotel room like you can today. Like today, holy moly, everybody's probably being recorded all the damn time. Every time you poop, every time you change your clothes somewhere, like, somebody's recording it, some pervert's watching it, because those cameras cost 15 cents and they're the size of a grain of rice. So they're everywhere. So, something happens and somebody records it, and there's tons of incentive to share it and to become rich or famous, exposing somebody. Where back then, cameras were the size of suitcases, and you had to figure out some way to drill a hole in a wall and rent the next room over in the motel and then patch the wall. And you had to really work to get a secret camera somewhere. So that's probably why they had to make do with hey, we got a telephoto lens shot of you sitting on the boat, but we all know what that means, right? We know what was next. We know what you did downstairs in the boat. where nowadays we'd just be showing the raw footage of what was going on downstairs in the boat, right? Or maybe I'm just being pessimistic. Oh, cheap flights. The problem with cheap flights is I gotta leave my dog somewhere, and everybody I know is an asshole. So, like, oh, your dog has hair. Like before, it was like, oh, your dog looks mean. He's 95 pounds or whatever. So I could understand, like, I don't want to take care of your dog. But now she doesn't even do nothing. Like, I don't even know where she is. She's basically a white basset hound, but the people are like, oh, she has hair, so I don't want her. So I'd have to like put her in a place that costs money. And when I used to do that, it used to be $35 a day. I don't know if it's the same now with the whole China virus and whatnot, but I can't just leave her here. She's not like a fish where you can just put an automatic feeder and come back in a week or whatever. You got to feed her every day, and she wants water, and she goes outside and stuff. So I got to do something with her. And I haven't flown with her, but I think that would be expensive. But plus, I'm not little, so when I have to like fold myself over and cram backwards into a tiny little airplane seat, and usually, at least the last time I flew, which was a while ago now, I guess, you don't just get to choose the good seat. Sometimes, like a hostess or whatever they're called, the stewardesses, will be like, "Oh, you don't even fit into a regular seat, so we have to give you an aisle or what they call it, the emergency row seat." But sometimes they're like, "Hey, fuck you! I want to watch you be, smashed up for the entire flight to Florida." And even though I could control this thing, I'm the boss of it. I can tell anybody to sit anywhere. I'm just going to watch you sit in that, whatever that's called, where you're at the bulkhead. I had to fly the bulkhead all the way to Florida one time. That was pretty shitty. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of tiny little airplanes, or at least the tiny little seats that are in big, giant airplanes. One time when we flew back from Florida for SHOT Show in 2009, we went to Dallas, and then we got off of the regular plane that flies from Florida to Dallas, like across the Gulf of Mexico. You get like a big TV that shows you where you are over the Gulf of Mexico, so if you crash, you know which way to swim and stuff. You land in Dallas, you get off of the real plane, and you have to haul ass because Dallas is some sort of a big test or like test of skills. So you land, and then you have to run to the other side of the airport, and there's no like fake, one like horizontal escalators or whatever those things are called. None of that. You just have to run, and you got like 15 minutes to go, 30 minutes to off the out of the airport onto like a blacktop area, like through some kind of like shack from World War II, and then like over to like some 2x4s that are covered with carpet that look like a cat scratch thing, that like are wedged up against this airplane. And it had like 2 seats and then an aisle and then 1 seat. And we had that kind of plane. That's the smallest plane I've ever been in that, like the smallest thing that wasn't owned by some person I know. Like it was a tiny little plane that took us from Dallas to Tucson. And that thing took like an hour because it could barely go faster than a car. And that was a horrible situation, not just for me, but for the poor sons of bitches who had to sit next to me because I did not fit in those seats at all. I was like, there wasn't a stewardess or whatever, flight hostess, flight assistant, whatever they're called. She was just there to like be the boss of the plane, but she wasn't giving out any food or nothing. But she wouldn't have been able to anyway because I was taking up most of the little tiny aisle in that plane. It was like being in a Lear jet that they shoved like 35 people into.
Yeah, I took a little puddle jumper maybe 6 years ago from Detroit to Chicago and hop in the lake. It took forever, and I can't remember which aircraft it was, but it was 2 seats on one side, single seat on the other, and maybe 5 rows deep, and every row had a window. One pilot, one flight attendant, and yeah, she wasn't anything but a waitress in the sky. It was not even a beverage flight, so that didn't happen there. But yeah, that's flying places these days is also kind of an almost questionable activity. So not sure that I'm going to be doing anything other than driving. And I do have the advantage of being smack in the middle of the country, so I can get to a lot of major cities in an 8-hour sweep. I can hit Denver, I can hit Kansas City, Chicago, Minneapolis. All of those are within reach. So I'm lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think for like manufacturing, that's where I'd want to be because then all your shipping is pretty consistent. Because I'll ship something, I'm always, I don't really pay attention. So like today, I had a bunch of stuff to ship because a bunch of people, thank you very much, bought stuff over at the store. So I'll be shipping, and I don't pay attention. I don't give a shit where people are. So I'll be click and click. I care about how much it weighs, right? And then I'll watch the price. So it'll be like ding, ding, ding. Every once in a while, it'll come up with like $2.93. Normally, it's like $3.40 to $3.80. So I'm like, what the fuck? And that's, it's not even Arizona. It's usually like California or something. I don't know how that happens. If it's maybe if you're right off the main route or something, it's cheaper. But yeah, I'll notice that. So my fluctuation, like say, can go from if I send something the farthest away, like regular mail, will go all the way up to like $4.50. And I don't know, that's not distance, so it must have something to do with like maybe Clover, where he's like in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, well, we can send that to this city, and they'll send it to that town, and then they'll put it on Pony Express, and then they'll take it to the stagecoach, and then that'll take it to the general store clerk who will have it for you, Clover. So because of that, it costs like $4 to send it to that dude, even though he's technically half as far as the guy who costs 50 cents less or something. But so being in the middle of the country, you would think that number one, it can only be half as much anyway, ever, because you can't ship across the country. You're in the middle of it. So it would be consistent and it would be half the price. But I guess if that made sense, then all the manufacturing would be there, and you basically have none of the manufacturing there. So it must not be all that efficient for that.
Oh, well, the logistics are super easy for the reason that you touch on there and more. And usually the attraction to the Midwest is also cost of living. And when you think of all the other resources that go, are distributed cross country, we're not, for instance, we're not that far from places where oil is taken off of container ships. And our gas prices reflect that. Do we have them as cheap as Texas? Hell no. But does anybody? We're certainly not Alaska, for God's sake. So things like that also help. The perceived Midwest work ethic is another thing. It's less true today than it was, say, for my for Gen X. Cause everybody's nice. We're not Canadian nice. That's in extremis, but the contrast being, New York, you can, be screaming, for help, and no one's going to pay attention to you because they're all too busy and self-absorbed. And left coast is going to go like, hey, what's going on, bro? So, we actually have people who will act on basic social contracts, offering help, offering assistance, that sort of thing. And then there is, of course, the Midwestern accent. As Dan Rather made his ascent through broadcast news, he was the example. Cronkite didn't have such a now I'm probably going too soon for national broadcasters for most of us here in the crowd, but the Midwest accent is another thing. So that's why we don't see as much manufacturing maybe, but we get all your damn telemarketing jobs, and that is huge industry for us. And we were talking about Mutual of Omaha. Insurance was also a big deal here in Omaha for a while. Not so much anymore. And, my favorite manufacturer in Nebraska, Hornady, far and away, easily.
Are they like do you know how big they are? Like, I guess financially, but like on the scale of how big the companies are in Nebraska? Because I don't know. I'm sure meat or corn or something is the giant company there. Maybe fracking or something is the big company.
Now we're sitting on top of the one of the largest aquifers in the world. So it's only on the periphery of that there's any kind of oil stuff being done. Although the pipeline stuff was stopped, and some of my friends participated in that about 4 or 5 years ago.
But it's not like Hornady is so big that they're like top 10.
Oh, it's not like thousands of employees or, the biggest buildings or anything like that. They probably, by my estimate, it would be like, hovering between somewhere around 100 and 200 employees.
Well, I've been there. I'm just curious, like how big they are compared to other companies in Nebraska. Like how big of a company they are in Nebraska.
The contrast against other manufacturers, when it comes to things like farm implements, not even close. When it comes to, anything that's agriculture related is going to be here.
That's the real industry, right? It's either oil
yes,
or something.
Yeah. And so anybody that's, supplying, grain producers, other crop producers, meat, producers. Yeah. All of it. There are some things that we still don't provide on our own, from our own natural resource, but they're all significantly closer than any other portion of the country, because it's mostly stuff coming down from Canada these days.
Do you know if they make soya beans there? Is that a thing there?
Is that a specific company, or are we just using the Japanese soya generically?
Yeah, I just mean, is that one of the crops there? Because it's, I don't know if
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's corn, beans, milo. I mean, Kansas does a better job with wheat, but corn is right up there. Beans are close behind, and no other row crops are that big here.
Well, the soybeans they've been using. I mean, I'm sure you can do it with other things. I'm sure they do all kinds of craziness with corn. In fact, I know they make plastics out of corn. But anyway, I guess I've been watching things about plastics, and for whatever reason, I've been noticing that maybe it's their marketing. They're making more of a point to say, like, this is sourced, like 40% of this, 50% of this is sourced from soy, as opposed to petroleum, basically. So it's saying this is renewable as opposed to non-renewable. And that's where I'm wondering, some of these states that have been producing stuff that feed crops or just whatever, stuff that you can do other things with, turn it into corn syrup or whatever, things that become other ingredients. I'm wondering in the future, like, I don't know, the agriculture department or somebody does some kind of strategy with that where, today we're using the land for this, but in the future, this is going to be a giant demand and we could easily, shift, and then now we'd be making all this money or whatever. So anyway, we're going off on super side tangents there.
Well, still, I think they're reasonable things for consideration, particularly because, tonight I was curious in finding out where everybody lived. And so if the chat is suggesting how it is where they live, I'd certainly like to know, and do a comparison contrast, and what is it that I have that others do not is always going to be on my mind when I meet somebody new. And soybean, big use coming on in the last decade or so are all of the processed foods that are made now with soybean. Made the shift away from corn, and so now soy burgers and textured vegetable protein, something that any of us who have had a gas station burrito have experienced. And my, isn't that squishy stuff great? Alternative medicines, finding cross things to use in as many applications as possible. Like George Washington Carver started off that agricultural research thing with the peanut, and corn, I feel, was next. Soybeans close behind, and the international market is real solid for that too, I should point out. So we have a lot of advantages here. I mean, I don't like it when people call us the bread basket, because we don't grow wheat that much. But if it's a meat product, it's being processed here. All the national and international meat processing concerns are here or nearby. So that's a big deal too. I was a security guard for a lot of years, and I did part-time fill-in and holiday coverage at a couple of places in a community called Fremont that's about 45 minutes from me, and it's one of those towns that's built on the meat packer. Omaha used to be the same way. At one point in the mid 19th century, or mid 19th to early 20th century, we beat Chicago for the largest stockyards, and we always processed more meat than they did.
I don't know. I never really paid attention to that, but I would. I don't know about. I would think always. I don't know. I have a question because you're northwest of Kansas City, and from what I understand, we went from Civil War, and everybody's just basically making do. There's no refrigeration, obviously, so it's like you go buy food, and or somebody's buying food to make that day, and then everybody's eating it. But it's not like there's refrigerators and there's leftovers or anything like that. You know, if there's leftovers, the pot just stays on the stove and you add more to it tomorrow. I'm guessing it was more like that. So then you get the end of the Civil War, and you can kind of get this from movies too. You get the dudes from the Civil War who are like, now what are we going to do, right? And families and everything's destroyed from having the Civil War happen on top of it, right? So a little bit of the North, most of the South is now just a smoking rubble pile. Everybody's got to build that back up and then whatever. So now you get, what is it called? The antebellum or Reconstruction or whatever. But you get all these dudes who are like, I don't want to sit around having to work, so I'm going to go west and live a life of luxury. So I have to start working on taking all them wild cows that have been walking around and started hauling them ass up to Kansas City. And then they would get on a train and go to Chicago and be processed into, now let's all eat meat all the fucking time. So that's when our diet changed to, instead of eating whatever, now you're eating, like most of the time I think they ate like gruel and bread or something, like they, you know, just sort of some kind of porridge, some kind of stew all the damn time, to like, oh, let's eat steak all the time. Because they took all these wild cows and herded them, then started breeding the cows. Then ranchers were like, oh, this is pretty easy. All I got to take is these cows and just let them do their thing and then start selling all their babies. And it's pretty easy. So they just started claiming land. And then, you know, so that's when the whole beef thing happened. And then I get the impression that that's where Chicago started. But then Chicago at that time was way out west. You know, it wasn't central or nothing. And it had room to sprawl, and the railroads came from it and to it. So I don't know when. I would think it would have had to have been till California happened before something west of Chicago could be a meat processor, is all I'm saying. Because then they would have had to process the meat way the hell out there, put it on a train and book it east. That had to be refrigeration. I don't think they would have been doing that before refrigeration, unless they did it with ice. I guess they could have done it with ice, but it wouldn't be unreasonable to see a bunch of ice houses in Nebraska. It would cost you zero to collect ice all winter long, and all you would have to do is have a giant building to put the ice in. Well, look, as soon as I challenged them on whether or not Nebraska was really the meat industry, you booked out of here. You couldn't take the challenge. So now we figured out the weakness with Nebraskans. All you got to do is challenge them on whether or not Nebraska is dominant in the meat cutting industry or not over a long period of time. That's their vulnerability. Let's see. In the printing business, ink is soy-based. Now over petroleum. Interesting. Now and that's the thing. From what I understand, I'm no chemist, but I took chemistry class in high school, and I'm on the internet. So basically, like oil or whatever, is just a bunch of carbons of different types that are like Legos. So all they got to do is walk up to it and knock it over, and it's a whole bunch of little blocks. Now they can take all of the one kind of blocks, and that's gasoline or kerosene or whatever they want, or they can play with them in all different ways and say, hey, let me take these 5 different kind of blocks and stick them together, and we're calling this Dorfel, whatever. And then they figured out they could do the same thing to corn a while back. Hey, if we take corn and go like this, it's a bunch of Lego blocks, and now we can make corn ethanol or corn falafel or whatever, and make, you know, all these different elements out of corn. Or we can just take these building blocks and make robot corn, and now the robot corn is sterile or whatever. Now robot corn makes you want to buy more corn. So that's what they're doing with soy as well. Is they said, oh, you know what, bang, now we can take all these little pieces out. And I don't know if they're different Legos than corn, or if it's just better to make soy than corn, because corn's kind of a dick. Corn's like, hey, give me all your nitrogen and fuck you to the soil.
Corn is a dick. It's a grass.
Yeah, exactly. And it's designed to do its thing, but when we turn it into like weird Barbie proportions, giant boob having tiny stalk, the stalk on corn only has to exist to hold up its giant boobs, right? That we're either
Yep.
going to feed to a cow at a ratio of 35-1, or we're going to eat or turn it into corn syrup and drink. But that corn is, yeah, definitely like hoovered over. So I don't know what if it's different in soy, like if it's just having a bunch of cool, what is that stuff called? There was like that cool kind of Lego that had like girders and it's like an erector set made out of Lego plastic versus regular old little kid Legos or something. So I don't know if it's that kind of difference between soy and corn or what, but I suspect it could just be, like I say, the corn takes half of the, I don't want to say half, a really big portion. It might be a third, it might be two-thirds. I don't remember because it's not my main interest anymore, but it's a surprising amount of our petroleum that we use in this country is turned into fertilizer so that we can make a bunch of feed corn so that we can feed it to cows at a ratio of 35-1. So we create 35 pounds of protein so that we can feed it to a cow and get 1 pound of protein out of it. Like the most efficient, stupid ratio ever. It's literally the least efficient. It's not the least efficient. Chocolate is least efficient, but cow is about the least efficient way to turn our resources, which is our petroleum and our land, our surface soil and our water, freshwater sources, the transportation and effort it takes to move things around, like all of these resources. We create this corn. And the only way to create corn, since it says, fuck you, soil, I'm taking all your nitrogen, I'm going to fucking die. And I'm going to leave you a shitty corn stalk that isn't going to return nothing to the ground for shit. So normally back in the day, and if you look at like a package of food, the way they make you think a farm works is you grow corn on this acre for a year, then you let the wild take over and you like let clover grow on it or something, and you let chickens and cows walk around and poop on it, and the soil comes back to being worth the shit, and eventually you grow corn on it, right?
Yep.
That's not how it works. You take a chunk of our petroleum and you turn it into nitrogen, and then you pour that on the soil, and then corn basically can grow because it's engineered to just suck nitrogen. Now, the residual of that, all the wastewater, sure, it's horrible and it pollutes the water and it makes our Gulf and everything sterile, and we've lost shrimp, and there's all kinds of consequence to the process. But that's what we do for corn. I'm guessing once they figured out, oh, we can take corn apart and I'll make like science out of it. Holy shit. Like it's not just for breakfast anymore. Now we can do anything we want with corn. They're probably like, that's awesome, except it's fucking super inefficient to make corn. Like what if we did that with soybeans, where I'm not saying they're better, but I'm pretty sure soybean being a shitty little creepy vine, right? It's just some creepy thing that hangs out on the ground.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot nicer because I'm pretty sure when soy is done, it's like, here, you can have all my beans. Now I'm just going to return a chunk of my nitrogen back to the soil. Like it's not such a dick, I don't think. But
no, not at all. And it also, you're right there. You're also pointing out the fact that all those acres are converting oxygen converting CO2 a lot more efficiently.
Well, I never even thought about that angle. So it's interesting. I never thought about that. Now I wonder if it's just the nature of corn, or if they've just they didn't care, so they engineered that aspect out. Because if it's a changeable aspect, then they could just GMO, more chlorophyll or whatever back into corn or something, make corn way greener. Yep. But that's interesting. I never thought about that. But then there's also just the, I guess the potential for how you grow the thing. Corn requires big, stupid rows where I'll bet you could be more creative with soy. Put it inside, for example, put it on terraces or vertical or something. So I bet you can be more, because it's a vine and just the way it grows. It's not a grass that needs to be super straight so that it can hold up its giant boobs.
Totally. Yeah, crop rotation used to be something, obviously was the predecessor to chemical applications, and most people can relate to big pharmacy, big pharma, but this is not with a PH. This is with an M. And industrial farming is completely different. And it is only those kind of deconstructionist abilities fostered, of course, at all our ag campus-based colleges and universities, there again, we are a source for that. There are test plots all over the place here. The companies, grab a couple acres from some guy. They have a little party out in the field when they're going to plant. They come back in the harvest and they have signs along the rows for all the different hybrids that they're testing. And that's something I grew up seeing. And so they're called research farms if they have the entire the arable land available to them from a large farm. Those are more responsible and ethical operations, because, at least usually, because they are university or research school based operations. And there's sorry, I lost track.
Well, we were just talking about the farms and
okay, back to corporate. So you got companies like Cargill, Monsanto. You have Cargill is a supplier more than anything else. So let's talk about Monsanto. Monsanto has a lot of those test fields. Not only are they developing the seed, but they're also developing all the pesticides and herbicides. So you're locked into a relationship with them as soon as you contract to receive their seed. You don't even have to plant it, okay? If your neighbor's field, separated by inches, has a product applied to it or engineered by them, they can shut the other producer down. They do not allow it didn't used to be all that rare when I was growing up in the 70s, but after the farm crisis hit, a lot of the guys who did their own for seed production could no longer harvest and prepare for market their own seed corns. They stomped on
Or,
go ahead.
from what I understand, just like normally, let's say, I don't know, this is your property and these are your fields or whatever. You live on somewhere and then you have it divided up. Like normally, let's say you would, from what I understand, you take like these two fields and say, let's just keep these as seed. And then you would sell these. Let's say you keep this to eat and then you'd sell these to run your farm. Now
Sure.
you even keep, and then you would take the seeds from these two and grow your next year's crop. So you'd always have your own seed for your own crop. What I understand is you're not supposed to take your own seeds anymore. You're supposed to always buy seeds every year somehow.
That's it. And once you have that product in your ground, you cannot get out of you can't get out of the relationship with them. They will sue producers out of business. It's considered like a genetic property rights kind of thing. So the sad thing about it is, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to go too far down that road because we can talk about that forever.
Sure.
It's not guns. I really don't even touch guns, but that came from what I understand, the idea that you can trademark genetics, which, whatever, that's a whole nother topic, I guess. But the consequence is once you can trademark, this is my tomato or that's my corn or whatever, and all the other stuff, I think, too, pesticide and fertilizer and all that. Because you're going to build, like if you build an electric car, it wouldn't do any good if everybody's got gas stations. So you build a super corn. Well, you probably need to build your own super vitamins for it, and then your own super. Well, you don't need plant killer, but whatever. You need to like have different elements that support or allow your superfoods to work. But anyway, the idea is that they could start to copyright the genetics, and then you have to when you have a copyright. It's just the way it works. If you either have something that's copyrighted and you protect it, or you have something that's copyrighted and you don't protect it. So if you have something that's copyrighted and someone comes along and copies it, you're obligated to challenge that person. Otherwise, there's precedence that you aren't challenging it and you're literally giving it away. So you either have to aggressively stop people from doing it or give it away. So it's literally on and off switch from what I understand. And I'm not trying to give to anybody who's being a jerk or exploiting any of us, but I can understand that it evolved and that these are giant corporations trying to do stuff. And I've heard all of that stuff too. And that's, like I say, that's just because it's a huge topic that I have an opinion on, but I don't have a dog in the fight other than eating, wanting to pay for food or whatever. That kind of stuff would be like a whole nother topic. But that's super interesting because, well, anyway, for a lot of reasons, that's super interesting. But to just go back from where we were heading into there is, with taking the corporations and the business side, which again is worth addressing. That's the thing. I don't want to downplay the concept. It's super worth addressing. Honestly, it's like I think it's one of the more crucial things, and it's frustrating when we see the election and everything focus on the he's mean to me and I don't like the way he said he was mean to me shit. When there's literally things like that are just not even addressed. Like there's not their food, like distribution of resources, long-term strategic use of our natural resources, not even brought up. Back in the Cold War days, strategic use of our natural resources was a thing. We'd talk about helium reserves, which most people like helium balloons, who cares? Not even realizing the significance of the science use of a gas that cannot be created. You can't create noble gases. Elements that are 2 electrons big are not created in mass, right? These are things that are created in the hearts of suns, and they only exist in our planet as the radioactive decay of other things, which are in our ground. So when we are dismissing and totally ignoring things that are super critical to questionable BS weather type of predictions and chaos theory type of political spin crap, and then now just this bullshit like I don't like the color of their flag arguments, like it gets pretty frustrating. So I don't want to dismiss the whole corporatizing of our food, because as corporations, and how many of those corporations are run by and live in the United States, strategically, worst thing we could do, blah, 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 Chinese are buying our stuff. Chinese are buying our stuff. The Chinese own the companies that own all the production of all of our food. Like that would be a big deal. I'm not trying to downplay that part of it. But when we talk about getting into the science of it all or whatever, the what do you want to say, like the nuts and bolts of taking apart of the corns and the soys and stuff, I think that's super promising with 3D printers. Basically, the stuff I was looking at was plastics. So making plastics out of soy, again, if you can create all kinds of interesting ways to get the soy to exist, grow the soy, and then do that in ways that is beneficial to everybody. I never even thought about the idea of replenishing, healthy air or whatever, or filtering air in the process, but potentially filter water, create environments for other kind of things to eat, fish or bugs or algae or something, whoever wants to eat whatever. And then have this soy product that can replace petroleum in the building block stage of stuff. So then, in other words, take a soy, screw with it a little bit, maybe add a little bit of solvent or something to get the process moving, or some sort of a plasticizer to keep everything fluid while it's in the process of forming or whatever. But use that in 3D printers or in other processes that basically become the replicators from Star Trek, the things that we're going to eventually have. Like if there's a 3D printer that costs $300 and it's the size of a toaster oven, like name anything that hasn't evolved beyond that, like that didn't get smaller. Dick Tracy watches were ultimate science fiction, and I don't even see people anymore that don't have stupid smartphones on their wrists, like those goofy Apple watches now. Like I don't think people buy regular mechanical watches anymore. So yeah,
I love it. I love it when science fiction turns to science fact. I'm a huge champion of that, and I can't wait for there to be transporters.
Can you imagine where you've got a let's say a 6 foot by 6 foot thing, and in it you lay down like a sheet or something, like you lay down some sort of a matrix or a net, and then you water it, or maybe you've got it's a robot that waters it and monitors it, and it's got probes out in the net or something. It's got biofeedback. So as this thing grows for 3 months, on the top part, the greenery happens and maybe a fruit or two pops out. Maybe, who knows how they can bioengineer, the thing that'll come off of it. Maybe just spools. How crazy is it to believe that they can't create a thing that looks like an orange, but when you peel the skin off, you put it into your 3D printer and it's just a spool of, raw material for your 3D printer. And, that's the fruit that comes off of this green thing. But then, as it grows and then dies, the net or the matrix that it's in just falls down to the next level, and then microbes or enzymes start to remove items from it, and a steady stream of another raw material for your replicator happens. And then you throw the next net down and the greenery starts for a 3 months process, and then that happens, and that greenery drops down to the mid-level that was the mid-level, drops down to the bottom level, where another level of microscopic, or not microscopic, but a mushroom fungus goes in, and the mycelia just literally eats whatever the bacteria and shit and the enzymes didn't eat in the first layer of mechanical deconstruction. And then the raw product that comes out of that is the fertilizer that gets incorporated. So maybe the net falls out the bottom. You add a couple of seeds that come from some outside source to create the next iteration of fruit you want out of it. But basically, we come into something like that is semi-automated, that takes little or no, or maybe it takes the level of input from the user that you decide. Like buying a stick shift or an auto in a car. Maybe if you want to be involved in the process, you buy a nuts and bolts one and you can modify things, or maybe you just want like an Apple. I just want to buy the easy one. I just get my robot and it gives me my elements for my 3D printer. So now there's this little greenery, little spot of 6 foot by 6 foot on most people's roofs. And unlike a solar panel, it's just up there being green, and it's creating the endless supply, or a continual supply based off of the carbon in the air and the sunlight, and just a little bit of input from some sort of outside source, the engineered direction of the thing. But it just creates the endless supply of whatever it takes for your food replicators. And if you've got a big family, you've got 3 of them. And if you've got a smaller family, you just got the one. How do we know that that's not where we're going? But are we pointing at that? No.
Well, I'll give you an example that at least people where grass grows could relate, and that is you buy sod rolls when you want to put in a new lawn, and you buy it, and you either load it into your truck or they deliver it on a pallet. And when you said 6 by 6, that's exactly what I was thinking about, because I have rolled out more Kentucky bluegrass carpets here than I ever want to do. Than I want to do for the rest of my life. Too many. So that kind of does exist already. And if you combine it with the idea of hydroponics and aeroponics, that's a completely different delivery procedure for the nutrition for those plants. They don't reproduce it as much, and you can't reprocess some of that matter back into your system, but you can use it in a soil-based system after harvests. And when you want to talk about an easy way to hybridize, there's nothing faster. Well, there are a few things faster than just simple grafting. You can do, you can pretend that you're Gregor Mendel and work your Punnett squares for dominant and recessive traits. And eventually, with a short rotation, you can come up with hybridized vigor, a new female plant, and hybridize off of that one until you get exactly what you want. The key here is, how long does it take you to get that active, thriving hybrid? After spending a little bit of time in laboratory research with some stuff, I'll use an example of the common fruit fly, Drosophila. If you want to see how many generations it takes to do something, do it with Drosophila. They live and die in a day. So you get literally each day the ability to re-engineer or retest and come up with test hosts for the future. It's pretty amazing and fun stuff, really.
I can't remember what year in school, but I remember doing that a bit. And yeah, it was neat to watch stuff evolve through their generations or whatever.
Yeah, like apple trees that every branch bears a different variety. That was, kind of that was almost like mythic, magical kind of stuff to me. Didn't even understand how it was done. And then I learned it from the apple orchard outside my hometown, grafting to get a new hybrid and something that's more vigorous and, will use some of the buildup that's already in the soil system that you have, because you're not talking about a soil mat there. You are talking about however far down the roots go. So knowing that it's considerably larger underneath than it is above reminds us also of the mycelium that you were talking about and how they are actually the largest growing mass that we have on Earth. You're talking thousands of square miles somewhere around Appalachia, where it's a single mother colony. Just amazing stuff. I had a professor friend who was he was a lichenologist, and that was his new hot thing. So I learned a lot of it back in the mid '80s.
Yeah, there's a show out now, fairly recent at least, called what the hell is it called? It might be called Fantastic Fungi or something like that. Dang, I guess I should know the name of the thing. I've watched it like 3 times now. But yeah, there's a fairly recent thing about that touches on that as well as a bunch of other things about how awesome mushrooms are and what they keep discovering, like how responsible, I guess, or how integral they've been in development of so many things. Definitely another topic or whatever. Well, we were bringing it back in from Monsanto in that to bring it back to Guns or What, and then I've just been scrolling through the feed here over on the Instagram. I follow quite a few different channels, so got a bunch of different stuff showing up. Interesting to see how different people use their channels. Somebody was giving one of these away somewhere. Oh, it was Tony Simon was saying he's giving one away. So as he's saying, normally they rotate corn and then soybean. I think it just depends on what your end goal is, right? Like if you're making corn for cows, it's different than making corn for corn syrup, and that's different than making soybeans. I'm guessing. I'm just guessing, but I just say that because I've heard of places that only do corn ever, so there's no way they're rotating it. They may rest, they may like kill a field for a year or something, right? But or maybe I guess I don't fucking know if they grow something on there and just don't talk about it. Then of course you could get into the whole like I don't know how the hell the government keeps track of all the like weird stuff that the government tries to influence and all the subsidies and things like again that gets into the people who are really paying attention and trying to be strategic. They got to start bringing in world populations and projected storms and famines and all kinds of craziness that long-term projections and things that I'm not getting into. Any other gun topics tonight? We're at 2-hour mark. We got people. Well, there's been people in here. I can't tell from this how many people might still be out there. It says 5, but like I say, we never know. We know that Night Strike left. He said later, "I'm out of here." So that was at 10:46. That was like almost an hour ago. He's probably not here anymore. This is a new person and may still be here. Did Weston say he's leaving? Yep, he said he's leaving. So at this point, we don't know how many people are out there. We have gone, if there was some sort of roadmap, it's like we had some sort of thing, went down here, then we went over, and then we went back, and then we went over here, and now we're over here. So now we're just sort of free floating over here. So if somebody's got a point or a topic, then we can address it. Otherwise, we've been chatting for 2 hours. We've definitely completed the 1 hour contractual obligation. This is my first yawn, even though I just woke up and I'm drinking coffee. So it tells you how thrilling this conversation's turned into. Let's, do we get it back on topic or do we call it? I think we might have talked out DJ or his internet's giving him shit again. But I appreciate it.
No, I'm just thinking that it'd probably be a great idea for most of us, and particularly those of us who are dawn writers like you and I, to consider getting some rest so that we are prepared and revitalized for tomorrow's rally. That's what I'm going to do, G.
Right on. So yeah, I have no idea. I just woke up because I don't know. I was all messed up. I stayed up and then went, oh, if I stay up too late, I'm going to fall asleep right when the show starts. So I fell asleep intentionally, or I went to sleep intentionally this afternoon. Woke up right before the show, so I'm sort of on I don't know where the hell I'm at. I'm drinking coffee now, so I'll be up for a while. Thing is, I got the thing here in Tucson, which I haven't been invited to, and I don't know what time it is. So I guess I don't have a thing here in Tucson, but there is the NRA thing here in Tucson, and I've not been invited to, and I do not know, but I've heard that it's in the morning. So I don't know what that means. So yeah, I potentially could go to sleep and be ready for that, but since I'm not invited, I don't even know. I really think it might be in the morning. I'm going to keep working on the project I've been working on here. So I'll be up for a bit working on that. If anybody, like I say, if anybody was interested in continuing the conversation, you are more than welcome, but nobody's taking us up on that. In fact, it's been 15 minutes since Ozzy last commented. So we're going to assume then that the only people that are watching are the people that are in some sort of a coma or so far away from their machine that they can't fiddle with the keyboards or what. And we'll wrap it up. So with that, I don't know if this is a good show or not. You'll have to tell us. Anybody else disappointed that foreign affairs was not addressed? Well, I mean, I guess I don't see like a giant imminent thing. So I guess it's not like there's a position or point that I feel like they should have hit. But in general, yeah, like what the hell is the president even for, right? That's like one of their things. Like the stuff that they were fighting about is stuff that anybody who's rational should have had the balls to say, you can claim that you're going to change that, but you're the president. You don't have that power. We don't live in that world. You're not an authority. You're not a king or whatever that is. So, you don't get to deem that. The best you can do is petition the people who do and then make it easier or difficult for them. But you barely have any power at all to set any doctrine. So, yeah, I would much rather have seen them do something that was, in their wheelhouse, like in their actual job description. It's to everybody's profits off of the distraction, literally. I mean, look how many people don't even ask that question. This first time I think I've seen that question asked. And I'm not saying it's never been asked, I just haven't seen it asked. But yeah, exactly. Like that's a real politician thing. Hey, Joe, what do you got in mind for? I think they kind of talked about China, but it's not like China's the only country. It's an important one. But what about India? It's just right there. So, they didn't ask them about a bunch of the stuff that they actually do. Maybe hold them to task or hold their feet to the law enforcement and things that they actually are immediately accountable or in charge of. But like I say, literally everybody, they get to win because they don't have to talk about that stuff. So they can literally do whatever they want. There is no consequence. They can't be held responsible because they never said ahead of time what they were going to do. So they can just do whatever they want and everybody just has to deal with it. And they create a future or a situation where people just don't even question that. They don't remember that we have the ability to question them on those things and that they used to address those things publicly, but so they win as politicians. The networks, the people that are reporting news and trying to keep the topics divisive and superficial, they win because it's a superficial, divisive bunch of shit that was talked about. And then all the people that are satisfied, quote unquote, participating by just regurgitating, don't have to do anything. They get to win. I mean, they'd win either way is unfortunately the thing. They would win if people gave a shit, and they'd win if people were super active. They'd actually do better, but they're content to just regurgitate. So unfortunately, we got people that could and should be potentially really changing shit by focusing on that. You got people in the middle who are going to profit, and they've decided that that's what they're going to profit from, the lack of that. And then you got politicians who win pretty much either way, I guess. But on the other hand, they probably count yelling about Russia collusion or something as foreign affairs, right? But I think even DJ brought up earlier before you fell asleep about how back in the day, like where we had troops and how much we were spending on them, and whether or not that's effective, necessary, or our obligation or responsibility, or that kind of thing. Like that used to be a thing at the debate. We talk about numbers of dollars spent, but no one questions where the leash is going to be held on, or where the belt's going to be tightened, or whatever the thing is. No one thinks about that. They just think that you just reduce the volume overall or something, I guess. We're going to take $5 away from everybody. They don't realize that when you reduce a budget, you usually just remove departments or goals or objectives. Like, okay, well, if we don't have that much money, we're not going to tell our aircraft carriers they have to fly less flights. We're just going to not, bring aid to this country anymore, or we're just not going to bomb that country anymore. I don't know what the Navy does. The Navy either helps people or kills people. So it just depends on what mood they're in that day, I think. They just had their birthday, so they're probably helping people. And it's about to be, no, it's not about to be. It is the anniversary, though, or it was the anniversary of the Beirut bombings in 1983, I think it was. So a bunch of Marines got their asses killed by a fucking coward bomber. And I don't know if that really did much, except because it was news, but it didn't really strike home with people from what I remember. So it's something that people in the military, certainly the Marines, remember, because it's unprecedented, I think, but it's definitely in our lifetimes one of the few times we've had to deal with cowardly attack. That's super frustrating, right? To just be doing your job, basically trying to protect, attempting to protect without being overtly fascist or anything. What's the word, like protecting by just defending. Not being aggressive, and people taking advantage of that and rolling a bomb right up to a bunch of people that were sleeping in a non-war zone or whatever, like a non-high threat level situation, and take advantage of all of that to just cause death and atrocity. Pretty effed up. So again, it's frustrating when that kind of stuff gets ignored or whatever, but at the same time, I don't want to live in some fascist place where only thing we remember are the military victories and defeats. That seems a fuck lot like Stalin or 1984, the book. So in some ways, deciding to volunteer to be in the services in the long term means that you become part of a brotherhood that gives a shit about stuff that other people aren't going to give a shit about. And in a lot of ways, you take that obligation so that other people don't have to know about it. There's some dark, horrible shit that I don't want little kids to ever know about. And it'd be nice to think that they'll never have to know about it. But if they do, it should be when they're older, right? I don't want little kids, just because bad stuff exists doesn't mean there's got to be unfiltered knowledge of it always, right? So some of the stuff that like this that happens, and it's frustrating and horrible, everybody knows about because it was news. Uncountable number of horrible bullshit, unnecessary seeming things happen, and you just got to eat that. Otherwise, everybody knows about everything horrible, and we can't move on. So I guess it got weird and kind of medium dark at the end there, but whatever. Nobody's listening anyway. It's late. So DJ, thanks for jumping in. Whoever else is out there, we'll end it at 223. Dang, we can end it at 223, so that's what we're going to do. 223 and 50. That's a good place to end.